Okay, everyone. So this is a big topic because probably at least everyone in our life has come across a point of presenting. Whether that's presenting a PowerPoint, or that's presenting a focus group, or that's presenting a project, or of some nature, you have been given a point in time in your life when you're presenting. And the topic of this video is how to overcome fear with presentations. Now, I have seen and heard and talked with a lot of people before over these fears. Some of the given fears that people are expressing is the feel of failure, the feel that their audience is either not going to capture something, or it's not going to come out right, or just the worst fear, which is that your audience just doesn't like what you're presenting. And in school, this can be very troubling because you're still trying to find out yourself. In a job, this can be troubling because you're still trying to find your position within that company. And obviously, there's an obtained outcome. I think that's relevant of whatever you're presenting. There's always an obtained outcome that you are looking to get from this presentation. Rather that is, selling your product or selling the topic to your teacher. There's going to be something of value that basically you are looking to capture. And fear is one of the biggest things that can take people away from really capturing their thoughts with other people. And it's usually a big area that people struggle with. And so I wanted to kind of give some of my feedback, of how I've been able to overcome fear and fear with presentations. And I think it's important to understand that things in life go in ebbs and flows, and it's all about learning. And I guess to give my experience in passive presentations, I've been able to present in front of, a couple hundreds of people. I've been able to present in small groups. I've been able to present in front of job interviews, in front of teachers when I was in, high school and college. And so I've been able to go through some of the same things that I feel the audience probably goes through as well. And to start, I was not a strong presenter. Actually, the first presentations that I had was actually in sixth grade, and it goes to one of my points that I'll drive to later in this conversation. Here is my first presentation was a presentation that was talking about country specific um, demographics and geographics. And I didn't really know what to expect out of the presentation because this was my first presentation, and I wasn't sure what that presentation was supposed to be, how I was going to perform, was I going to be confident, and a lot of things raced through my mind. Well, on the presentation day, I had all my notes. I did all the pre-work that I needed to do. I made sure I structured everything that I wanted to say to my audience, and I got up to present. And upon presenting, I went blank, and I froze, and I got really red in my face, and all my presenting materials that I was to go over, I started to skip through, right? And I think we've all been there where you've got this perfect planned out presentation, you've got everything that you want to say, and you're ready to present it, and then you start skipping over things. And then as you skip over things, you start to get flustered because you just skipped over one of your main topic key points, and now you can't go back to it because you're so frustrated that you're frustrated with yourself. You're frustrated at how you're probably appearing to people. Your confidence now isn't the same it used to be when you right before you went up for that presentation. So you start to become almost like a scatterbrain type effect. You really feel like this has already failed. What's the point of presenting? And things just continue to get worse. Well, that was my first presentation. I was actually presenting with another fellow, and where I went extremely red and forgot a lot of my stuff, he went extremely pale to the point where it looked like he was probably about to either A, throw up or faint. And, not only is it a struggle trying to present by yourself, but it's also a struggle when you are presenting with someone else and that obviously that chemistry is not there, or that confidence is not there. Presenting with other people obviously brings in different factors, but for this video's purposes, really narrowing it into presenting just as yourself. And like I said, that first experience of me presenting didn't go well. And it caused a lot of biases to my later presentations until about high school. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in the conversation here. But it didn't go well. And I didn't start off as a strong presenter. I didn't have the confidence that I needed to. And the area of fear for presenting in my life had awoken at that given point in time. And so, what kind of leads me into the next topic to start to really tenfold bring fear down when it comes to presenting is understand what type of presenter you are, but also too don't lock yourself into this mentality. And what I mean by that is by different presenting types. There are people that typically go into a memorization practice. So you'll see some people that are very fluent with memorization. They typically do very well on tests. They get A's on tests because they're able to capitalize either by memorization or by just that memory of, I mean, even just the given page. Some people can actually, while they're taking a test, remember what page that writing was, and they can say, "Yep, that's exactly what that is." And they've got this ability to retain information, maybe above other people's abilities. And so, if you're a person that tends to go with memorization, then you have to own that type of option. There are other types of people too that are completely opposite. Speaking on the cusp. I'm more of a presenter now that I've gotten very confident and I'm very comfortable in my speaking. Rather that's in a crowd of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people to speaking one-on-one. I can come with a presentation on the cusp. And what that means is I don't necessarily go in with a outlined plan. I have the research. I've done the research. I understand what I'm presenting. I very well understand what I'm presenting to the point where I have done ample amount of research that allows me to bridge that confidence level and then present that to my audience. And so, whether you are model A, which is memorization, or you are speaking on the cusp, or you have a third outlier effect, which is a hybrid between the two. Some people want to make sure that they memorize certain parts of a presentation because they know that's their key point. They know that that's their home run. They know that that's something about that specific topic that they are really ready to sell. And so they've got that part of, okay, I've got the memorization of the facts I need to do, but then I can also kind of speak on the cusp as I'm going through transitions. And so on this first point, what you want to do is ask yourself, what type of presenter am I? Because when you find out what type of presenter you are, whether that's speaking on the cusp, whether that's memorization, or whether that is a hybrid between the two, you've got to figure out what suits you as a person the best. And once you do that, you're going to start yourself with a leg up compared to every time you presented in the past. And so going into the next framework that I believe is the most important way for people to overcome fear with presentation is understanding your audience. One of the biggest points that I can make that has helped so many people in the past that I've helped counsel is everyone is a person. Everyone at one point in time has done a presentation. Everyone has made a mistake during a presentation. Everyone understands the feeling of a good presentation. Everyone has been in your shoes. And so the sooner you accept that the person that you're presenting to is a human and can make just as much of a mistake that you can make, you will finally get that confidence. Just start to earn that confidence and understand that if I make a mistake, it's okay, because more than likely the person I'm presenting to has made a mistake themselves. And I think that helps when you get into a presentation mode. And as I was addressing in the earlier part of the conversation, you make a mistake, and so you start flipping through your notes. Rather than continuing to bury yourself and start getting flustered and start skipping over your points, take a second to just look at, okay, hey, you know what? Count back from 5 in your head. Just count back from 5, which is a way that the brain kind of resets it. It basically shuts the brain down from whatever its current position was. Count back from 5. Own that you're going to do this presentation really well, and then begin again. Because more than likely, the person that is your audience really is not even going to understand that mistake, or they're not going to hold you to it, which is one of the people's fears is once I make a mistake, the whole presentation has to go down. And that's not really the reality of it. During my presentations, have I made mistakes? Absolutely. During this video, have I made mistakes? Absolutely. Maybe I haven't spoke the word clearly, or maybe I have meant to say one word, but I say another word, or I was meaning to say something, but then forgot to say something. So, I've got this weird, awkwardly pause on the video that's just like, exactly that. So I think what it comes down to is understanding that everyone is a person and everyone has been in your shoes. And when you can start to understand that and you can take that approach that, hey, you know what? I'm going to go into this presentation and my audience, they have all presented something in the past and they probably have messed up too. It gives you a comfort in a region that maybe you never thought before. And, so I think it's a good point to remember that no one's perfect. And if there is that perfect person that can give a perfect presentation every single time, kudos to them. That's great. But there's probably other areas in life where, they are not perfect. And, so I think it's an important thing to remember. And I think that the other thing that kind of goes well with that and accommodates that is not to say that you utilize this, but the normal human brain capacity to retain everything that you're saying is not necessarily there. So what I mean by that is just as a couple facts and figures. So after a presentation, on a common statistic, it's noted that about 50% of what was said during the presentation is able to be retained. Now, as the next day, about 25% is retained. And then after about a week later, 10% of that presentation is retained. And so this kind of goes well with what I was just saying. If you make a mistake, do you really think that people are going to focus just solely on that mistake? And if the answer to that is yes, then that's where I would say, I'm sorry, that's your audience who is missing out on a good opportunity. Because if someone's going to focus on just your mistake rather than your positives, you probably don't need to be pitching someone an idea, or you probably don't need to be presenting that to that person in the first place. And so I would comfort yourself with that idea as well. Everyone is not going to be able to remember everything that you said in that presentation. So focus on your key points. Focus on your drive home points. Focus on the things that are the most important to your presentation as possible. And I think it comes with something too of saying when you are presenting, and we've all been in this room before where you're trying to capture your audience. And I'm sure if you weren't the person presenting, you could look as another person in the audience and you could say, wow, there's a lot of people over here that are not paying attention. That's one of the biggest things that people refrain from in a presentation. When you're presenting, I think people have this ideology that everyone is paying attention to every single move, every single action, every single thought, every single thing that comes out of your mouth. They are all paying attention to, and I honestly think that's humanly impossible. Even myself, just kind of going out there, people's ability to focus. If I look at a couple of things that cause people not to focus, it's wandering thoughts. So when someone's been presenting to you in the past, how many times have you caught yourself not paying attention? Or how many times have you caught yourself trying to tell yourself to pay attention, which is then making you not pay attention because you're too busy trying to focus on what that person is presenting? In literally words, it happens to every single person. So wandering thoughts is something that your audience is going to have. And the more that you can accept that and really use that as an advocate to gain more confidence in your abilities, and if you can think about it in a lens of, hey, you know what? I'm going to present everything I've got. I've studied this. I've done the material, and I'm just going to present to the class. And if there is people that really enjoy it, fantastic. If there are people that aren't understanding the materials, try to pick up on that. Try to look at people's cues that are basically, if you're seeing some facial expressions, Don't let that deter your confidence, right? Like if you got someone who is making a weird face, you don't know if that person's making a weird face because of what you just said or because of something else. So skip past it, right? Like don't get stuck on, oh, is that person, nervous about are they thinking that my presentation's bad, or are they thinking that my material is wrong? Don't focus on that, because when you focus on that, it's usually pretty detrimental to the rest of your presentation. And no longer do you have that ability to focus. No longer do you have that ability to capture your audience, because you're so worried now about one single individual that you've just lost the rest of the 30 participants in your presentation. So I think that's something to remember about as well. As well as, you know, people are not perfect. Your audience is not going to be perfect. We just mentioned two reasons of why their ability to focus would be lacking. The first one being wandering thoughts. The second one being that a person's literally trying to tell themselves to focus on your presentation and they're not technically focusing because they're distracted. And that leads to the third thing, which is distractions. We live in a world with phones. We live in a world that has your phone vibrating, or you've got your a text message coming in, or you've got an email that you're waiting because you're looking to get hired somewhere. So we've got these distractions in the audience that reframes us from being able to be totally just devoted. Even your teacher, even the person that you're trying to sell to, there's not a physical person in this world that can be 100% devoted to you 100% of the time during your presentation. And I think that's something to, once again, build your confidence on. And, I think what it comes to is sharing another life experience. And I talk about confidence. I know a lot of the audience is probably going to be looking at this video and being like, well, but, he sounds like he can present because he's doing this video right now. And all I can say is I wasn't always this way. I had to have significant breakthroughs. I had to try different things. And as I talked about the first ever experience that I ever had presenting in sixth grade, that really foreshadowed the next couple of years until I got to my junior year of high school. Because of that first event, which I believe in many people's own experiences, there has been one significant event that has caused you to lose that confidence. Unless you were just born to either not be confident in presenting because you're an introvert, or whatever the reason, there typically is a factor that has caused you to not feel confident in presenting what you're doing. And that sixth grade event was my event. And it didn't get into the junior year of high school that I remember this as clear as day. I was about to do a presentation. It was actually a debate class, and I had all my materials. I was up at the podium, and I was getting nervous. The same things that used to sink my ship before were the same things that were popping up in my head. I was like, are people going to like my presentation? Am I going to screw up like I've screwed up in the past? Am I going to forget things? Am I going to ramble on? Am I going to miss my main facts? Am I not going to get the grade I wanted to get? Am I not going to sell the asset that I'm looking to sell? And it took the definitive point, which I would say, if you can take anything else out of this video that is the most important, is accepting. I think with fear, you have to do two things. You have to recognize fear and what it is evolved around your current situation, and then you have to accept it. You have to accept that if you are a fearful person in presenting, accept that you're not the best at presenting. You're not the best at the materials that you're presenting. But the sooner that you recognize and accept, the sooner that you can grow. The sooner that you can acknowledge, hey, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be the best presenter of this topic, but I'm going to give it my best. And that really goes well with one of the other points I'm going to capitalize at the end of this is, don't focus on your desired outcome. If you are presenting because you're trying to sell an asset or you're trying to sell a product, and your only focus is to make sure your audience buys that product, a lot of people will tell you that that's the right manner, But if you're only suiting your presentation to an outcome derived goal, you're going to set yourself up for failure, because you're not so much focusing on the person, you're not so much focusing on your topic, you're solely focusing on the reward effect. And when people have that reward effect, they build this up to be so powerful that it usually is detrimental to their ability to present. Point example, if you are a business person and you're a gal or guy who is trying to sell, let's say, water bottles, and you need to sell 100,000 water bottles by the end of that presentation. If you build the idea that if I don't sell these water bottles, my job is going to be done, or if I don't get people to understand how great these water bottles are, that I'm not going to be an accomplished person, you're going to sell yourself short. And what's going to happen is you're going to go into that presentation with too much stress and too much anxiety about your desired outcome, that you're going to forget what the whole purpose of your presentation was, which was to speak passionately about something, to speak passionately about what you're selling, in believing in what you're selling or believing in what you're presenting as well. Or if it's just for the school intended purposes of presenting something that teacher gave you a topic to present about, try to find out what you do like about that topic and expand your ideas on that and expand your presentation on that. Don't just focus on what people can typically just Google search, because it's not going to be authentic. It's going to be something that you're trying to present of someone else's idea. So you really got to make sure that you take this as a conception of it's your idea, and you're not focused on the desired outcome. You're not focused on getting Janet to buy your product. You're not focused on John trying to purchase your software, or you're not focused on getting the letter grade that you need to get. I think when you start to separate yourself from that ideology, you start to allow your wings to be spread, and you start to allow yourself to get comfortable in your shoes. You start to look at people the same way that people look at you, and that's important. And so, I think to kind of continue on to that, going into that thought process of whatever you're presenting, it's important to remember a couple key points. If given an opportunity to speak about something that you're passionate about. Don't speak about something that's easy. Don't speak about something that you feel you can just, get that desired outcome, because more than likely that's going to be short-lived. You want to start to form your presentation skills around something that you truly believe in, because when you truly believe in something, people are going to feel that. Look at different people like Les Brown, motivational speakers. He sold his story, and his story was he went through hard knocks, and rather than falling to maybe the crowd that didn't want him to succeed, he was able to continue to prosper on. He was able to do the unimaginable. And now he's become, maybe not in this later time, but one of the most recognized, well-pronounced motivational speakers. At least one who I believe is a fantastic motivational speaker. And he's part of where I learned some of my background to speak to people. And so speak about something that you are passionate about. And another tip, just to kind of going into that, is rather this is at the beginning of your presentation or during your presentation because you just made an error in front of the crowd, count backwards. I said this a little bit earlier in the video. When you find that you're at a stuck point, rather that's right before you're going to make the first word coming out of your mouth at the beginning of the presentation, or you just messed up because your slideshow is not working, rather than being flustered, count back 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and allow your body to feel released, relieved. Allow it to feel calm. Regather your calmity, because it allows you to speak passionately again. It allows you to not hit that roadblock that you just witnessed. And it allows your brain to basically say, okay, hey, we're going to pull the brakes here and we're going to start over. And I can't guarantee you, but I can tell you from my own experiences, when I have used that method, it has very much so worked in my favor. It's allowed me to speak confidently again. It's allowed me to recognize my crowd. And it's allowed me to go over some of the points that I've already made with you guys before. So I think that's an important thing to really hold on to, is that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 backwards count. Another point would be is find a focal point in the room. I think people get so overwhelmed with trying to capture their entire crowd that you see this. And the person's just kind of talking, and then they talk over this way for a little while, but their eyes are never focused like how they're focused on my audience right here, which is just right now my phone, but the audience that hopefully this hits to help people that maybe have felt the same way that I have in the past. So pick a focal point. Is that someone in the room that you're comfortable with? Talk to them just like you're talking with a friend. Or is it that you've got an audience of 30 people and you find someone that you can make good eye contact with? There's good natural chemistry through eye contact. Now, obviously, don't take it to a point where it's weird, where you're just singling out a person that is feeling uncomfortable by you just staring at them during your whole presentation. That's not what I'm saying. But pick something that is either a person, an object, a blank space. So like if you have an audience that's more centralized, there's a way of looking in between people and using that as your focal point than a specific person themselves. So find a place in the room that allows you to kind of scan the room and talk openly with people and pick up on some of your audience's responses. If you're finding something in a room that is giving you a gravitational pull or giving you a reason to draw your eye contact to that, well, use that as confidence. If you have someone that agrees with you and they keep shaking their head like this, when you're feeling like maybe you're at a vulnerable point in your presentation because maybe it's not selling as well as you wanted it to, go to speak to that person, because them going like this is going to allow you to feel more comfortable, because you're like, that person gets it. I knew that person would get it. And I think that will allow you to transcend the rest of your abilities to present, and it will allow the rest of your crowd to say, yeah, this person's, I get it. I get it, because it may not even be what you're saying, but how you're presenting. And that vibe that you're giving off, the vibe of confidence that you're giving off. And I have to say, a vibe of confidence is something that is important in this society. People like speakers that are feeling confident. You couldn't have Les Brown go up on an audience of 100,000 people, or let's say Kevin Hart go on to 100,000 people. If he wasn't feeling confident, it doesn't matter how many people would be there, whether it's 10 or 100,000. They're not going. Their attention's not going to be there, because they recognize that their presenter isn't confident. So why should they be confident as an audience? And so I think that's important, is just to make sure that you yourself learn what current point of confidence level you are and put an indicator on that. If you feel that you're 10% confident in your presentation skills, well, then you accept that you're at 10% today, and you continually improve from there. So maybe the next time you're 12%, you're 13%, and making sure that you're accepting of where your current position is and where you want to be. And like I said, I think to wrap up this video, as I know I've kind of gotten long-winded, I think you'll find that with most of my videos, just because I passionately like to help people, is my greatest tip for fear of presenting is focus on you. Focus that you are going to give your crowd the best that you can give them, and accept that is the beautiful thing about what you're about to do. Have that audience see you rather than what you're trying to sell or you're trying to present. Because if you can get them to see you and you can get them to believe into you, you can do any type of product. You can do any type of presentation. You can present in any type or amount of people that are going to be your audience. And so when in doubt, own who you are, and own that you may not be a perfect person, but there is a lot of great things about you that your audience will be able to see. And I think that's pretty much all I have for this video. I hope that people can take some of the inputs or all of the inputs or whatever it is, and I hope that there's a relating ability there. I hope that there is a gained, um, just confident. I think, just like I said, you got to own who you are, and then go in front of people and recognize where your place is, recognize and accept it. Once you've accepted it, you know that you've hit rock bottom and you can grow from there. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. That is faithforwardhelp@gmail.com. If you have individualized questions that you want me to address and hit back to you, I will try to get back to everyone. However, mass amounts of emails do start to come in, but I definitely will be looking at everyone's emails. And if you have questions, if you have significant experiences or events that you want to talk about, feel free to send me that. My whole goal for this space is to help people. And so I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for y'all's time.